Good morning students. Few things we are going to discuss today from chapter 4, moving charges and magnetism. The first topic which we are going to discuss is your moving coil galvanometer. Now you see this figure, it's a coil and coil is nothing but some kind of wires wounded over soft iron. Now the coil is suspended from the rigid support with a mirror, and it is placed in between the two poles, north pole and south pole. The base of the coil is fixed with a spring. Now north pole and south pole provides magnetic field, and the field lines passes through the coil. Now current flows through the wire of the coil. Now magnetic field and current, so definitely the coil will experience a torque, and the torque can be defined by NBIA. This is some kind of deflecting torque. N is your total number of turns, B is your magnetic field, I is the current, and A is the area of the coil. Now this is some kind of deflecting torque. Now as the base of the coil is fixed with a spring, so what will happen? The coil will deflect, but due to the presence of the spring, it will not be able to deflect fully. So what will happen, due to the spring or on the spring, you can say some kind of twist will occur. Okay, now this twist, what it will do, it will try to bring back the coil in its own position. So one is your deflecting torque and another one is your restoring torque. Deflecting torque will try to rotate the coil, and restoring torque will try to bring the coil back to its position. And this restoring torque is due to the spring, or due to the twist experience on the spring. Now if we consider phi is the twist and k is the torque per unit twist, then k is your constant property of the material. It is specified in the galvanometer itself. So k phi gives you the total restoring torque. So one is your deflecting torque, another one is your restoring torque. Now in equilibrium, tau 1 equal to tau 2. So you can say NBIA equal to k phi. Now NBIA equal to k phi. From here we can define NBA by k equal to phi by I. So phi by I is nothing but is your deflection per unit current. So this is nothing but the sensitivity of the galvanometer, current sensitivity of the galvanometer. So sometimes it is asked to define current sensitivity. So current sensitivity depends on total number of turns, magnetic field area, and torque per unit twist. Now we can get the voltage sensitivity if we multiply denominator of the current sensitivity by capital R. R is nothing but the resistance of the coil. So NBA KR, so phi IR. IR is your V, so phi by V, that is your voltage sensitivity. So you can define current sensitivity and voltage sensitivity, and G is your galvanometer constant. G is nothing but is your K by NBA. G is your galvanometer constant. So these are the parameter of the moving coil galvanometer. It's very simple if you have gone through the previous topic which we had discussed in the previous class. Now next topic which we are going to discuss is your conversion of galvanometer into voltmeter. So if you want to convert galvanometer into voltmeter, what you have to do, you have to connect a high resistance in series with the galvanometer. So G is your galvanometer and R is the resistance connected series with the galvanometer, and G basically we have specified the galvanometer resistance. So in this figure, a source is connected, so current will flow through the galvanometer. Let I suffix small g is the current through the galvanometer. So from Ohm's law, V equal to Ig, G plus R. So from here, I can calculate V by Ig equal to G plus R. So R equal to V by Ig minus G. So R is the value which you must have to know if you want to convert a galvanometer into a voltmeter. And this can be defined by V by Ig minus capital G. Now next we can convert a galvanometer into ammeter, and for that we have to connect a low resistance in parallel to the galvanometer. So S is the low resistance connect parallel to the galvanometer, and I is the current. So I gets split up at the junction. One is your Ig, that is current to the galvanometer, and next is your I minus Ig. So potential is same, galvanometer and the shunt resistance S. So IgG equal to I minus Ig S. So S you can define Ig by I minus Ig into G. So you can define S, or if you know S, then you can convert the galvanometer into ammeter by connecting the value of S in parallel to the galvanometer. So these formulas are very important for the numerical point of view. Now the next topic which we are going to discuss is your cyclotron. Now cyclotron, you see in this figure, two D-shaped, D1 and D2, and there is a gap. Now D1 and D2 is nothing but a D-shaped hollow chamber. You can consider a pencil box, but the pencil box should be in D-shaped. So if you see that inside it is hollow. So two D-shaped chamber is there, and a gap is there in between the two, and two D-shaped chamber is connected to the oscillator. Now oscillator, what it will do? It will alter the potential. Okay. Now how it works, you see, oscillator one time it makes the basically oscillator, what it will do, it will one time makes D1 is at higher potential and D2 is at lower potential, and later on again D2 is a lower potential, D1 is a higher potential. So oscillator basically it will do, what it will do, it will alter the potential. Now let me consider a positive charge we have placed in the gap between the 2D. We have drawn that dot part, a positive charge is there. So a positive charge is there in the gap between the 2D, and D1 is, let me consider D1 is at lower potential. So what will happen, that positive charge enter D1. Now inside D1, due to the presence of the magnetic field, what will happen, it will describe a curved path. Now when it describes a curved path at a particular time, it will come out from D1 in the gap. Now when it come out from D1, oscillator must be such that D2 should be at lower potential and D1 is at higher potential. Have you understood? Now if D2 is at lower potential, what will happen? Again that positive charge will get attracts towards D2. Now it will enter D2, and due to the presence of the magnetic field, it describes a circular path. Now when it comes out from D2, alteration of potential must be there. It means now D1 is at lower potential and D2 is at higher potential. So things must have to be maintained, and this is possible by the oscillator. So whenever the charge will comes out from the D, alteration of potential must be same, otherwise it will not get pulled. The charge particle will not get pulled and the cyclotron will not work. So the two things, number one, oscillator potential must have to be altered, and the alteration is such that when the charge particle will comes out through the D1 and D2 are the hollow chamber, then alteration potential must be there. So in this way, what will happen, every time the charge particle get pulled and it moves with high energy, and finally what happen, when the energy is sufficient, then we can take the charge particle through the exit port. Now when it comes out through the exit port, definitely a target must be there, that on the target the charge particle will strike. So what we can do, cyclotron, if a nucleus is there, it will strike on the nucleus, the charge particle, and possible nuclear reaction we can study. So here you see magnetic field is there, perpendicular into the plane, cross basically. So F equal to QVB, so mv square by r, that is your centripetal force, and r you can consider the mean radius, because so many circles are there, no? So V equal to QRB by M, so R equal to MV by QB. So mean radius we can define. Now time to cover the semicircle is your T equal to pi R by V. So R by V you can take pi M by QB. Now capital T is the time period of the oscillator. Oscillator time should be such that alteration of potential must be there. So T is the time it takes to come out from D, and under that case T should be equal to capital T by 2, because in oscillator you do have two semicircle, one is positive, another one is negative, and semicircle is your T by 2. So that's why alternation of potential occur, and for that small t, that is the time it takes to cover the semicircular region inside the D, that is your pi r by v, that should be equal to capital T by 2. So capital T equal to 2t, so capital T you can define, that is your 2 pi m by qb, and frequency you can define n equal to 1 by t qb by 2 pi m, that is the reciprocal. And kinetic energy we can define half m v square, half m qr v by m whole square. So from this you can see that kinetic energy increases with the increase in radius. So the charged particle describing higher radius have higher kinetic energy. That's why the particle must have to move concentric circle, and when it reaches the periphery of the D, then you have to take it out, because under that case the charged particle will be of very high kinetic energy, and the possible function we can perform. Now this is all about your cyclotron, and there is a limitation of cyclotron. You are not supposed to take electron. Always you have to take positive charge in between the 2D. Why you can't take electron? Because electron mass is very less. Now when it moves with high energy, what will happen? A mass defect will arise, because that energy is very close to the speed of light. Very close to the speed of light. That's why mass defect arises, and that's why you are not supposed to take electron. Okay, so there are many applications of cyclotron. Possible nuclear reaction you can study, or you can make advanced material by impinging ions inside the material. So there are lots of uses are there. Please go through this part. This part is very important. Many questions you will get in your exam, also the numerical. So if you have any doubt, please do ask, though you don't have any habit to ask, but I'm insisting you, please do ask if you have any doubt, so that there may be some interaction. This is all about. Thank you.